During the past few years, we come across dozens of viral videos. And in the next 20 minutes, we're gonna take this raw footage and turn it into a viral video using 6 static vector files. And just so you know, it has already proven itself. And if you want to explore more editing style like this, you will find step-by-step viral editing courses and direct access to more than 85 videos inside of an Edit Mastery Academy. The link is down below so you can check it out. We're gonna talk about that later, but first, let's watch what we are gonna edit today.
There's only 5 ways you can get more customers. Number 1 is you reach out to people privately. So you cold call, cold DM, cold email, whatever. The next one is that you make content that attracts people to you. The third is that you run paid ads. The fourth is that you get affiliates and partners. And then finally, customers tell other customers.
First of all, let's start by creating a new composition. I'm gonna open 9x16 vertical composition and rename it as main. Perfect. We're gonna build all the animations onto this video. So, let's import the first Illustrator file into our project and go inside the composition. By pressing Ctrl+ key, I will open the composition settings and change the dimension of our sequence to 9x16 so we can easily match this scene with our main composition. Let's go ahead and remove the last 2 empty layers. Then I will rename the layer 13 as background and adjust the scale amount to 120. For the other layers, I'll rename them inside of the composition one by one as well, such as text background, character, and people. Then let's add a rotation keyframe to the background layer at the first frame, and I'm gonna move the playhead here and adjust rotation amount to 10. Great, so now we got a nice background animation. Now let's go ahead and make the text animation. I'm gonna select these 2 text background layers and place them a little above like so. Obviously, we're not gonna use dictator title. Instead of, I'm gonna write customers by adding ITC meshing font with a red color. Let's align it to the center and place it right here. Now we don't need the alt title anymore, so we can remove it. Next up, let's open the layer settings and add an opacity animator. Then we're gonna open the range selector settings, set the opacity to 0 and move the playhead to the first frame. Add a keyframe at the start, then move the time indicator to frame 21 and adjust the start amount to 100. Now we got a good looking animation. And to make it smoother, I'm gonna set the last keyframe to easy ease and adjust the keyframe speed in the graph editor. And here is the final result. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add more motion to our scene. I'm gonna select the people layer and open the position settings, then move the time indicator from frame 20 and place it down here. And add a position keyframe, and at the first frame, move it out of the scene until it's gone. Then select the keyframes, convert them to easy ease, open the graph editor and adjust the keyframe speed to make it smoother. Let's also add some motion to our main character. I'm gonna move the time indicator here and add a scale keyframe. Then set the scale amount to 120 and at the first frame, let's make it way bigger, maybe around 220. Let's select the keyframes, convert them to easy ease. Then in the graph editor page, we're gonna set the graph like this so the layer gets smaller way faster at first. And finally, let's also place the character position like this, and here's the final result of the first scene. Now we're gonna go back to our main composition and move the first scene to our timeline, and to sync with the video it should start from the frame 17. Great, so we now have this cool intro. Let's go ahead and work on our next scene. After importing the second scene composition, I'm gonna open it, select all the layers and paste them into our main composition. Let's start by renaming the layers, and the first layer is gonna be our blue background. Align it to the center and set the scale amount to 165. And then the next layer, which is of these 2 men shaking hands, align it to the center first and set the scale amount to 132. For the Durkheim entry, we have 2 layers, one of them for the shadow of the corners. After renaming these layers, I'm gonna parent link the shadow layer to the main one. Let's select the main layer and align it to the center. Adjust the scale amount to 180 so it can fit with the scene. And finally, move it up a little to make it centered like this. Now everything is set, let's go ahead and start adding some movement. At first, I will add an opacity keyframe to the background layer where the time indicator is exactly, so the second scene will start from here. Then let's grab the foreground layers and move them here on the timeline. We're gonna use them for the actual transition, so let's add a scale keyframe here, then move the playhead around 1 second back and increase the scale amount until it's no longer visible in the scene. Perfect. To make it smoother, let's select the last scale keyframe and convert it to easy ease. Then also inside of the graph editor, I will adjust the position speed, and here is how it looks so far. Now it's time to give some movement to the man on the scene, so let's go ahead and grab the pen tool. Then I'm gonna mask the man on the left side carefully, along with the shadow. And for the other man, instead of masking again, I will basically duplicate the current layer on the timeline, go to the mask settings, and turn on the inverted mask. By doing that, we can now control both men from different layers. Awesome. So let's select the both layers, and I'm gonna move the time indicator exactly at this point and add a position keyframe for them. Then about 1 second back, I will move them to the left side and the right side until they are no longer visible. Now we can select the last 2 position keyframe and convert them to easy ease, and finally adjust the keyframe speed amount. I'm also gonna add a motion to the head of the man, and to do this, we'll grab the pin tool and add pins to the man on the left side. We only wanna add motion to the head, that's why we first need to add pins to the rest of the body to prevent any unnecessary movement. After doing that, let's move the playhead about 5 frames and animate the pin on the head like so. And After Effects is gonna add a keyframe automatically. Then once you play it, you will see that we basically created a motion on the man's head using the pin tool. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add the same movement for the man on the right side, but before that, since we are using inverted mask, we need to pre-compose this layer first. Then, by using the pin tool, now we can add pins to the man. About 5 frames later, let's select the pin on the head and place it like this. And by doing that, we completed our second animation. As I mentioned earlier, I posted this video on Instagram and performed really well. But one of the biggest challenges is how to find the right clip to edit and how to edit that clip so it goes viral. Now there are a bunch of amazing tutorials on YouTube, but if you truly want to solve these problems, you need more than tutorials. Over the last 6 months, I built a platform where you get direct access to more than 85 unique videos, a 24/7 online community, and over 75 GB of editing assets all in one place. Once you in, you will start with the basics of After Effects, Premiere Pro, and even CapCut. Then you will move on to the masterclass modules where you will learn everything from choosing the right music, finding the perfect clips, and most importantly, a complete step-by-step viral video editing course. So you're not just learning how to use this software, you'll also learn how to create viral videos that really grab attention. You will also get access to creative animation sessions for those who want to go even further, and the Iman Ghazi Editing Masterclass, which dives into 3D camera moves and smooth motion graphics. And the platform is always growing. Even this month we're gonna add 14 brand new lessons, including Alex Hormozi Editing Masterclass. Click the link down below and start creating viral videos that stands out and get results. Now let's go back to our tutorial. First of all, we're gonna separate the Alex Hormozi from the background, so we can add the message pop-up between them. To do this, I will cut the video exactly from here and go to the end of the related part and cut it again. Then I will duplicate this part of the video, grab the roto brush tool, move the playhead at the first frame of the scene, and once you double click off the video, we'll have a new view monitor. And by using roto brush tool, I'm gonna select the Alex Hormozi from the video carefully like so. By pressing Ctrl on the keyboard or pressing a command if you're a Mac user like me, we're gonna clean the extra parts of the mask like that. To see the result in real time, I'm gonna turn on the transparency grid so we can do the rotoscoping with more detail. After it's done, I'm gonna set the in and out points for the scene and export this part as an alpha video so we can watch the scene more smoothly. Then we'll import the alpha video and place it in the exact same spot on the timeline. We can also delete the layer that we roto brushed. By doing that, we now have the both background layer and the Alex Hormozi layer. Now it's time to create our DM box here. Let's first add the PNG DM box to our timeline and place it between the background and the Alex Hormozi, and then pre-compose the layer. We're gonna go inside the pre-comp, and after aligning the DM box of the center of the scene, we'll write the message using SF Pro Display medium font, which is "Would you be interested?" Perfect. So let's place our message exactly right here, and now it's time to animate to our text layer. To do this, we'll open the text layer settings, and inside of the animate menu, we'll select opacity. And then let's open the range selector settings and adjust the opacity to 0. And add a keyframe to the start. Then about 1 second later, set the start amount to 100. By doing that, now we have a good looking typing animation. So let's go back to our main composition and place the DM box exactly right here. Then, to give it some depth, let's convert our layer to a 3D layer and adjust the X rotation to 4, Y rotation to 3, and finally Z rotation to 1. Now I'm gonna set the DM box position again, and after everything is done, we can now add a position movement to bring it from the outside to scene. So let's go ahead and add a position keyframe right here. Then about 10 frames back, we're gonna move our layer outside of the scene like that. And of course, we'll convert the keyframes to easy ease, and inside of the graph editor, we'll also adjust the keyframe speed to make the position movement smoother. And by doing that, we just finished our scene. Let's go ahead and jump to the next one.
So you cold call, cold DM, cold email, whatever. The next one is that you make content that attracts people to you.
The first thing that we can do is import the first Illustrator file to our project. Open the composition, select all the layers inside it, and move them to our main composition. So let's move these layers and start from here, which is around second 6. Align the background layer to the center of the scene and slightly increase the scale amount to around 165 to make it fit better. Alright, next up is the star background layer. We're gonna animate it soon, but before that, let's clean things up and rename both the background and the stars in the timeline, and let's grab these layers, turn them into a new pre-comp and call it stars. We got 2 more layers left in the main composition, which are the hands. Let's rename them real quick and then jump into the stars pre-comp. First things first, let's select all the stars, link them to the banner and bump the scale up to 140. And while all the stars are selected, we'll move the playhead here and add a rotation keyframe. Then 1 second earlier, I will set the rotation amount to -50. Let's also not forget to convert these keyframes to easy ease and take a moment to adjust speed graph like this to make the animation feel much smoother. Let's open up the Animation Composer plugin by Mr. Horse. I will drop the link down below, and the best part, it is totally free. Then inside the starter presets folder, I'll select this transition and apply it to all the stars in the scene. To make it look even better, I'm gonna add a 3 frame gap between each star so they will appear one by one from left to right like so. With this in mind, our work here is done. So let's go ahead and animate the rest of the scene. First things first, let's get those hands into the right spot in the scene. I will select the hand vector layer on the top, set the scale amount to 152 and place it right here on top of the stars. Next, I'm gonna grab the second hand at the bottom, set the scale to 152 as well and place it right here just under the stars. Then let's grab the stars pre-comp layer from the timeline and place it between the layers. After that, reposition the bottom hand to make the whole thing look cleaner. I will select the star pre-comp layer and parent it to hand 1. Then move the playhead here on the timeline and add a position keyframe to both hand 1 and hand 2. Now move the playhead to start of the scene, which is about 20 frames back, and we'll place the both hands outside of the scene just like this. Awesome. Let's select the last keyframes and convert them to easies. And to make the position movement smoother, I will open the graph editor and set the speed graph like this. With this being done, we finished our first movement. Now it's time to jump into the second part. But from now on, we need to parent the star pre-comp layer to the bottom hand. To make that work, I will cut the pre-comp layer from here and parent it to the second hand layer. Then we're gonna move the playhead here, shift the first hand to the right and the second hand to the left. To make this position movement smoother, I will set the graph like this, so the movement will start slower and get faster, just like that. Alright, now we basically finished the first part of the animation. Let's go ahead and start the second part. We're gonna start by cutting the extra part of the layers from the last scene, except for the background. Then let's go ahead and import the character Illustrator file as a footage and place it behind the star layers on the timeline. Our main character is gonna show up right after the hands are gone. I will place it here and add an opener transition from Animation Composer. Let's scale it up to 130 as well, and here's what we got so far. Alright, let's bring in the hands Illustrator file as a composition. Then we're gonna open it, select all the hands and move them to the main composition like so. Now we have a lot of things to do, let's not waste time and start by moving all the layers here on the timeline and adjusting the scale to 130. Then I'm gonna grab this hand and place it in the right corner of the scene. Set the rotation to 14 and place it right here, so it can point toward the character in the center. And I'm gonna repeat the same process for each hand layer, 2 for the bottom corners, 2 for the middle and for the top corners. By adjusting the rotation, all the hand layers will point toward the character in the center. As you can see, there's plenty of space in the center, so let's go ahead and increase the scale amount to 150 for the main character. So right now, what we wanna do is bring these hands in with position and rotation keyframes. But the problem is, all their anchor points are right in the middle of the hands, so that won't work. Now let's go ahead and fix it. We need to place all these anchor points in the right positions. Think of an anchor point like a little nail. When we rotate the hands, that's where they'll spin from. That's why it is super important to set them correctly from the beginning. Perfect, all set. Now let's go ahead and select all the hand layers on the timeline and add position and rotation keyframes where the playhead is. Then we're gonna move the playhead about 6 frames back and rotate all the hands until they are no longer visible. If we can still see part of them, no worries, we'll drop a position keyframe and slide them off screen too. And we're gonna select the first rotation and position keyframes, convert them to eases, and set the keyframe graph like this. I'm also gonna turn on motion blur in the timeline and make sure it's enabled for all layers too. Fast movements like this will look way better with it. To remove the emptiness, I will select all the hand layers and move them a couple of frames back on the timeline. And now to add some extra dynamism to this animation, I will add wiggle effect by setting the wiggle speed to 3 and the wiggle amount to 1. Then I will select all the rest of the hands and paste the same effect to them as well. And last but not least, I will shift a few keyframes around randomly on the timeline. That way, the hand movements will look more natural and not like a bunch of robots waving. I'm gonna cut the last scene from here. Then import the office background to the timeline and place it where the last scene ends. Next, I will bring the Office Illustrator file as a composition, and once I'm inside, since we already got the office background in place, I will just delete the all background layers from there. So we'll be left with just the ground, chair, laptop, light, man and the desk layers. And after renaming these layers, we'll select all of them and move them to our main composition. While all the layers are selected, let's move them around here on the scene. Then let's right click and create a new null object. I'm gonna select all the layers except the background and parent them to it. To make everything fit nicely in the scene, we'll scale it up a little and move things around using this null object. Alright, now it's time to create the line and the text. Let's start with the line. Grab the pen tool, turn off the fill, turn on the stroke, pick white color and set the stroke thickness to 5. Then I'm gonna draw a line around here on the scene. And when it's done, I'll place the shape layer between the light and the laptop layers on the timeline. I will also trim the unnecessary part so it appears at the right time. Awesome. So I'm gonna move the time indicator here, open the scale, turn off the uniform scale, move the anchor point to the left corner of the line, then set the first scale amount to 0 and add a keyframe. Then we're gonna move the playhead about 20 frames forward and set the first scale amount back to 100. Now let's go ahead and create a new text layer and write paid ads. Change the color to white, set the font to ITC Machine and adjust the font size to 120. Now, while the playhead is here on the timeline, let's open the text layer settings. Under the text section, hit the animate and choose opacity from the list. Next, we'll open up the range selector, drop the opacity down to 0, add a keyframe to the start, move the playhead 8 frames ahead, and set the start amount to 100. Now we're gonna parent the text layer and the shape layer to the null object. And I will move the playhead to the start of the scene and add a scale keyframe. And about 2 seconds later, set the scale amount to 152. After making the scale movement smoother, here's how it is looking. So far we're doing great, but to give some depth to scene, let's also add Gaussian blur to the background layer. We're gonna set the blur amount to 30 at the first scene, and about 2 seconds later, bring it down to 20. I will also apply the same effect to the other layers, but this time I will set the first blur keyframes to 13 and the last keyframes to 3. And finally, we're gonna add glow effect to the man, the line and the text layer we created. By doing that, our scene will look richer. And this is the final result. And with this all complete, we get this cool animation. And after that, let's also take a look at the next scene that we're gonna edit. First up, we create a new composition. Let's go ahead and create a new solid and apply gradient ramp effect. Then let's set the first color point to purple and the second color to dark red and change the ramp shape to radial ramp. And to give some vignette to our background, I'm gonna add geometry color and set the vignette amount to -1. Perfect. So we're gonna add Handshake Illustrator file from our assets folder, import the composition, and set the scale amount to 196. As you might have noticed, this is just a one layer, but to animate this, we need more than one layer. We're gonna mask and separate each piece that we're gonna give motion. So I'm gonna grab the rectangle mask and start with masking the ground like so. Then after rename this layer, I'm gonna duplicate it, remove the mask, grab the pen tool, and mask the man on the left side except the arm. We're gonna mask the arms separately soon. Alright, so I will rename it as man 1 and duplicate the layer, remove the mask, and I will start to mask the man on the right side without the arm as well. After masking the both characters on the scene, now it's time to separate the arms. So let's go ahead and duplicate the man 2 layer on the timeline. I will zoom into the scene and I will carefully mask the second man's arm by using pen tool like so. and don't forget to rename that layer. Let's call it Man2 arm. Now I'm gonna do the same steps for the left arm. Basically duplicate the Man1 layer, remove the current mask, then mask the arm and rename the layer like Man1 arm. Awesome. Everything is all set. Now let's go ahead and move the playhead to the second one on the timeline. Zoom into the scene and place the left arm's anchor point right here. This is crucial because when we're gonna give a rotation, it has to rotate correctly. Then on the timeline, parent link the Man1 arm layer to Man1 layer. And for the second arm, place its anchor point right here and parent that arm layer to Man2 layer on the timeline. Great, now while the time indicator at the second one on the timeline, I will select Man1, Man2 and the ground layer and add a position keyframe. Then we're gonna move the playhead here and move all these layers one by one out of the scene like so. Let's select all the position keyframes that we created and convert them to easy ease. And inside of the graph editor, I will make them way smoother and here is how it is looking. Now let's go ahead and give some motion to the arms as well. I'm gonna move the playhead here, select the arm layers and add a rotation keyframe. Then about 15 frames back, I will rotate the both arms like so. And of course, convert the layers to easy ease and smooth them out in graph editor. Now to give some depth to this motion, also to hide the extra mask parts mans on the bottom, we're gonna create a new null object. Then we're gonna select the Man2 and Man1 layers and parent them to the null object. Let's move the playhead here and add a scale keyframe to the null object, go to at start of the scene and set the scale amount to 180. After convert the keyframes to easy ease and make it smoother in the graph editor, here is the final result. Awesome. Our final scene is finished up. Now let's go ahead and go back to our main composition and place the comp1 composition layer that we created for the final scene to here on the timeline. And finally, I'm gonna add opacity keyframe to the composition 1 layer so it can smoothly start from the last scene. And now it's finally time to make everything look even better. First up, let's create an adjustment layer for the entire timeline and add a lumetri color effect. Then set the saturation to 110, contrast to 40 and highlights to 10. And I will also add a vignette for the entire animation. I will also import the texture image from the assets folder and place it right below the adjustment layer on the timeline. Set the scale amount to 194 and decrease the opacity amount to 9. This will make our entire animation look much better. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and if you wanna start creating videos like this, don't forget to check out Edit Master Academy. Take care of yourself and I will see you in the next one.